Hey humans, it's Hannah. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, I do videos on creepy and disturbing things. Sorry for my absence last week. We are back at it again. And today we are going to go over some very creepy Christmas urban legends and folklore. Thank you guys so much for all the wonderful suggestions in the community post that I posted. And this first one is actually from one of you. So the first folklore we're going to talk about is the Kallikantzaros. So the Kallikantzaros, or the Kallikantzaros, it is the plural version of it, are little goblin creatures. The stories are originally from Greece, but now they have spread all over the world. There's no one agreement on what they look like, but as I said, in most stories they're goblins. And in one description, it's that they have bark-like brown skin and blue eyes with green hair all over their bodies, usually described as the texture of pine needles. But this hair on their bodies is often also matted up because they come out in the winter when there's lots of snow. And because they're winter beings, it's said that they can handle extremely cold temperatures, and some of them even have an extra superpower of being able to control some of the snow and ice. Other descriptions just illustrate them as these humanoid creatures with a long black tail and red eyes. They are also mostly blind, they speak with a lisp, and they most enjoy eating small creatures such as frogs and worms. And because they're mostly blind, they also have an extreme sense of smell. The goblins are best known for haunting people, specifically in the 12 days of Christmas, which is December 25th to January 6th. January 6th is significant because it is the date known as the Epiphany. This is from the time of the winter solstice to a couple weeks afterwards, when the sun stops its seasonal movement. The Kallikantzaros cause general mayhem, and they really just like to be mischievous. They especially like to mess up your Christmas decorations, and the bigger, the more elaborate, the better. It is also said that children who are born on these 12 days of Christmas, however, sources do vary on the exact dates, that they may actually become a Kallikantzaros themselves if they were born during this time. And they wouldn't become the creatures when they were babies, but rather if they were born during this time, they were at risk of becoming one of these creatures when they were older. In order to remedy this and prevent them from turning into these little goblin creatures, the folklore says that parents would actually singe the toes of their infants, first tying their infants to tresses of garlic or straw. It is thought that this would prevent them from becoming these little monsters in the future. The Kallikantzaros only come out during these 12 days of Christmas, so the rest of the year they are hiding underground because, of course, the sun is their weakness and they could die if they're exposed to it. So while they're underground, it is said that all year they spend sawing down the world tree. The world tree is something apparently in the underworld that if it were to fall, the entire world would collapse with it. The Kallikantzaros enjoy this concept, so they spend the whole year trying to saw down the tree. However, the tree is very thick and it takes them a long time. By the time they're almost done and the tree is finally about to fall over, Christmas has arrived, and so they forget about their mission with the world tree, go up to Earth to go cause their mayhem and wreak havoc. But then, after the 12 days are over on January 6th, they have to go back underground as the sun starts moving again. In those 12 days that they were absent from the world tree managed to heal itself. And so the little goblins have to start all over again, and this supposedly happens every year. There are a few ways to deter these things from getting into your home. Some people place a colander on their front steps during the 12 days of Christmas. It's said that when the Kallikantzaros are on their way into your home, it will get distracted by the colander, wanting to count all the holes in it. However, the goblins unfortunately cannot count past the number 2 because 3 is said to be a holy number. door. If they say the word 3 or count to 3, then they have to apparently kill themselves. And so they're trying to count the holes in the colander, but they can't do so. So this distracts them all night. They forget to come in your home, and then by the time this daylight is coming, they have to hide again. In some other cultures, they throw this dessert on their roof, which is basically this donut thing filled with syrup. It's called the lucumades, and they also throw sausage on the roof at the same time. It's said that the goblins will instead get distracted by this and be chowing down on this all night instead of coming into your home. Others leave a Yule log burning for all 12 nights, believing that these things enter through your chimney and so the fire will deter them. Others throw smelly old shoes onto the fire, believing that the stench of the shoes will deter them away. As we discussed earlier, they have a very strong sense of smell. Or you could simply mark your door with a black cross. So that was the Kallikantzaros. Those were the most tame of the creatures we're going to talk about, because next we're going to go into a little bit of the background of none other than Krampus himself. So if you're like me, you've heard of Krampus, like, you know, there's tons of movies made about it. It's known as, you know, the horror Christmas creature, but I had never read about it and never really knew where he came from. So as you all know, in most cultures, like here in the US, the story that we tell children every year is that if they are nice and good all year, then Santa Claus will come on Christmas Eve and come down their chimney and bring them presents. Then in most of the normal stories, if the children are bad, it's said that Santa will bring them lumps of coal. And while that really sucks, who wants lumps of coal for Christmas? That's the worst that would happen. But in Austria, their fate is a lot worse than just coal for the naughty children. If the children are naughty all year, instead they have to face the wrath of Krampus. So Krampus is Santa Claus's counterpart. He originated from Austrian alpine folklore, and he's half man, half goat, but also looks quite like a demon. A creature with a long tongue, coarse fur that comes around on Christmas to punish naughty children. He always has this bushel of birch branches with him, which he uses to beat naughty children with. He also is often depicted carrying chains or a satchel as well. Some of the children are lucky enough to only get the birch branches a few times, but then there's other children that Krampus is said to throw them into his sack, and then he takes them away to either eat them, just kill them, or for the very unlucky ones, get thrown into hell. Krampus is so interesting because, as most of this folklore, he goes back hundreds of years, but he's still celebrated in different traditions to this day. To this day, in Alpine Austria and even some parts of Germany, they hold a night every year called Krampus Night, which they call it in German. I'll put it on the screen. This is usually held on December 5th, and during this night, adults would dress up as Krampus and scare the children in their house. And then there's Krampus Lauf, which literally means Krampus Run. So there's no specific day of the year for this, but sometime around Christmas, again in some areas, people, often grown men, get really drunk, dress up as Krampus, and literally wander around the streets scaring random people and children. Then there's even these terrifying holiday cards, often labeled with Gruß vom Krampus or Greetings from Krampus. They're terrifying, often depicting different ways that Krampus would terrorize the little children. Also interesting to note, Krampus and all traditions and celebrations involving him were actually banned for 4 years in Austria. The fascist Christian Social Party actually banned them for 4 years back in 1923. We aren't sure exactly why they banned him, but we're guessing it has something to do with the fact that he looked like the Christian devil. And apparently Krampus also has ties to the Socially Democratic Party. It wasn't until around the end of the 20th century when Krampus started moving west, and he's now part of many other cultures and traditions. Like here in the US, we've only started hearing about him in recent times since they've started making movies and stuff. Back decades ago, wasn't really part of any Christian traditions. So that's Krampus. He sounds terrifying, but not as terrifying as this last one, which in my opinion is the scariest of all. And this is the supposed goddess Perchta. Perchta, also known as Perchta or Bertha in English, is again folklore originally from the Alpine regions of Austria and some parts of Germany. So descriptions of her actually say she can take either two forms. One of them is beautiful, young, and elegant. And the other version, of course, is ugly and haggard. In some of her much older descriptions, she is described with one very large foot, which was often referred to as a goose foot or a swan foot. It's thought that this foot symbolized that Perchta was able to transform and shapeshift into various animals. However, with most folklore, there are different descriptions based on the source you go to. In other descriptions, Perchta has a beaked iron nose, she's carrying a cane, and generally just this very old woman dressed in rags. Kind of the stereotypical image we'd think of thinking of a witch. So here's why Perchta is terrifying. She is obsessed with cleanliness. She's obsessed not only with cleanliness, neatness in general, but also randomly spinning. And not like spinning on a bicycle, but spinning of materials. So often referred in these kind of stories, either spinning flax or wool into thread in order to weave into other garments. In Austrian and Bavarian folklore, Perchta would wander around the countryside in midwinter. She also enters the homes during the 12 days of Christmas. As we discussed earlier, the 12 days of Christmas is typically referred to as December 25th to the Epiphany on January 6th. On these days, she would enter your home and she would already know, kind of like Santa Claus, whether the children in the home have been good or naughty all year. If they were good, and if she thought that they had worked hard enough, she would leave a silver coin for them, usually somewhere random in the house, like in a pail or in one of their shoes. Remember, this was hundreds of years ago when a silver coin was an amazing present for a child. But if the children were not well behaved and did not work hard enough, Perchta would cut their bellies open, take out all of their guts, and then replace it with straw and pebbles, all using a knife that she hides under her skirt. Wow, does this story escalate quickly. She was especially keen to dole out this punishment to girls who didn't spin enough wool throughout the year. She also would dole out this punishment if anybody ate something other than the traditional gruel and fish dinner you were supposed to have on Perchta's night, which I believe is the last night, January 6th. Other sources say that if all your flax quota wasn't spun for the year, maybe she'll go easy on you and just trample it and then set it on fire. But if you really want to piss her off and get disemboweled, then you'll not only leave your house messy, but you'll also neglect to put out a bowl of this gruel fish porridge for her yourself. So in many of the stories, Perchta is also the one who looks after the Heimchen. These are spirits of children that unfortunately passed away before they had the opportunity to be baptized. So it's really, really odd that she's nice, angelic, and beautiful in some stories, but then in other stories, she's basically a witch who, you know, mutilates children. Because of all these legends, women back then would often create this porridge, which was this gruel and fish, and put it out in their homes for Perchta and her followers on the night of January 6th. And if Perchta liked your porridge, you would get blessings on the house for the whole year. However, this practice and tradition is condemned greatly by the Catholic Church, as putting an offer out to Perchta was considered a pagan practice. All the way back in 1468, in fact, it was completely banned to put porridge out for Perchta. So given this time frame, remember this was all going down around the 1400s to the 1700s, which was a prime time for people to be accused of witchcraft or being a witch. So it's often thought that though Perchta started out as this goddess, beautiful, looked after the spirits of small children, formed into this evil version of her during this time because it was associated with pagan traditions. And so Christianity during that time, of course, thought that was very evil. So they made up all these ugly parts of Perchta to deter people from worshiping her. So new rituals started in Austria. And I believe in some areas, again, to this day, people still dress up as both the beautiful version of her and the ugly version. And apparently I need to go to Austria sometime in my lifetime during Christmas time so I can see all these people dressed up as Krampus and Perchta on the streets scaring random people, because it sounds super awesome to me. I don't know. So that's gonna be it for today's video. I will try my very best. I'm hoping to have another Christmas video more focused on real Christmas stories on hopefully this Thursday or Friday of this week. But if we're being realistic, probably Friday, knowing me. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like the video. Thank you so much to my patrons, especially Colin Holmes, Deck of Cards, Creep Me Out, Alice Paul, Ryan Fenton II, Samantha RG08, Michelle Valdovinos, Tom L, JJ, Dirty Kitty, Deanna Burlston, Dawn, and Quasi Eli. But thank you so much to everybody on the screen. See you guys soon.